Well, hi, welcome back, everyone. So, wild lettuce. Probably a cut right there. I had to go and get my vape mod. I have been hearing a lot as a chronic pain patient. Various people have sent me videos. There was a video from YouTube, several videos from TikTok, different things about using wild lettuce to treat pain. And when I am confronted with something like this, like, I'm somebody who likes to, well, first of all, I like to read information. I don't get facts and information from social media. Not typically. I like to try and get as much information as I can from accredited, sources, academic sources, compare, contrast, and try to come to my own conclusion, what I think, based on facts and that kind of thing. So people kept pushing this wild lettuce thing, and before I continue, I have to say this, because people who use wild lettuce are probably going to defend it to the teeth, as many other chronic pain patients do with many other types of medications and therapies out there. They defend them to the teeth because they work for them. And it seems like no matter how I phrase it, this part just completely goes whoop and ignored. So, listen. I do not support the idea of forcing someone to take a medication for their pain, or any other thing out there, physical therapy, massage, acupuncture therapy. I don't support forcing anyone to take any medication or do any regiment that they don't want. If wild lettuce works for you and you're perfectly comfortable using it to treat your chronic pain condition, that's great. I'm happy for you. That's wonderful. I'm glad it works for you. The issue that I have is that one of the major class of medications that people have used for centuries, oldest prescribed pain medication known to humankind, has been taken away from many chronic pain patients, and for many chronic pain patients, that particular class of medication is the only thing known to work for them. I think, let me adjust this. There we go. I think a patient, goddamn Oh, I have to watch what I say. YouTube. Right. Stupid lawnmower. I think each and every single chronic pain patient, somebody who has chronic illness, somebody with disabilities, should have the right to choose what medication or what regimen works best for them. Period. So, if gabapentin works well for you, and you accept all the long-term side effects, risks, benefits, withdrawals, everything that it does, and that's okay with you, and it helps you deal with your pain. It seems to be a catch-all. They give it for everything. They give it for depression and psychosis and panic and anxiety too. I'm not sure why, but if that works for you, that's fantastic. That's great. And you are okay, and you know that some of the long-term effects, side effects, risks, and withdrawals can be life-threatening. I'm talking about gabapentin. They can be life-threatening, and they can last for the rest of your life, long after you've stopped taking the medication, and you're okay with that, then I have no problem with that. Likewise, and it's okay for the person taking gabapentin to say, you know what, opiates are not for me. I do not accept their risks. I do not accept their benefits. I do not accept their side effects, their, did I say long-term effects? That too. All that stuff, withdrawals. And you don't accept those things about, like the person taking gabapentin says, I don't accept those things about opiates. I don't want to use an opiate regimen to treat my pain. That's fine. The problem that I have is when person taking something like gabapentin says, well, it works for me, so it has to work for everybody under the sun, and it doesn't. You know, for me personally, all the tricyclics, SSRI, SNRI, antipsychotics, and even gabapentinoids, they cause a lot of psychiatric issues for me that have landed me in the ER. We're talking like psychosis, mania, some, like, I mean, I'm blanking out like 4 hours of time. When I took pregabalin, Lyrica, I lost 4 hours. I have no idea what I did for 4 hours. No clue. You could say I would become a threat to myself and others. I mean, I had hallucinations of trying to kill my pets when I was on that medication, so I was advised to desist immediately and report to the ER before I actually hurt somebody or, you know, one of my pets or myself. So I cannot take those medications, but it seems like the people who get a lot of relief from those types of medications, they want everyone under the sun to take them, and, well, no, you can't. It doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't. Sorry. And I think that there's a level of preference that comes into play too that's being ignored. You know, I mean, you put me on something like gabapentin, and you're basically condemning me to a life of suffering on top of something that was already causing me to suffer through pain. So I'll be suffering from pain, from physical pain, from the chronic pain condition that has left me debilitated, as well as being psychologically tortured by taking a drug that messes with me psychologically in a way that causes extreme amounts of dysphoria. And it seems like the people who push for these types of medications don't really seem to care, or seem to think that the only reason that happens is because you're just trying to get to the opiate. And no one entertains for a minute that, like, don't really care what it is. It's just, it's got to work, try to improve function, improve quality of life, be able to get some things done. So I am not making this video to tell you don't use wild lettuce. That's not the point. That's not the purpose. If you want to do this, that's up to you. If you do it and you get relief and you're fine with it after learning the things I'm going to tell you, great. I'm not trying to get you to stop. I just want people to understand the things that are being said about wild lettuce are not true. That's it. That there are things about wild lettuce people need to know. We need to stop putting these chemicals out there and pretending like there's such a thing as a perfect drug or substance that has absolutely no risks to it at all. That it doesn't exist. Everything has risks and benefits. Everything, including wild lettuce. So that's the point of this, is because I hear a lot of, like, when I look at these things about wild lettuce and I go and I read about them, about wild lettuce, I'm seeing a different picture than what these videos from social media are telling me. So my hope is to clear that up, is that, okay, you guys, like, yes, there are some pain relieving properties to wild lettuce. It's not what you think it is. It is not a legal opiate. That's not the type of pain relief you get from wild lettuce. That's not what it's doing. Some of that idea might come from the fact that it has a hallucinogenic property to it, much like Salvia divinorum. But they make it out to seem like, well, wild lettuce is this perfect thing. So, I have a video. I want to show you the TikTok video. I'll show you the first TikTok video of this person. The way that it's presented is almost like, they're making it sound like there's a pharmaceutical conspiracy theory, or that the only reason that opiates were offered as a pain-relieving agent at all was because it's addictive and they could profitize off of addiction. And I've had to explain this to leftists, like, look, I think there's a big difference between authoritarian leftists and anti-authoritarian leftists. I am anti-authoritarian. Look, you can have a society with these substances that where the substances are still used and enjoyed, or even used medically, without a profit-based model. Okay? You can have these things and people will still do them. Making them illegal doesn't stop that. That's been proven well over. But you can still have these things in a non-profit, like without the profit model. Like, I mean, you can think of somebody who grows these things, like grows their own tobacco. That they're perpetuating their own addiction. This is not based off of profitability and profiting off of addiction. Just some people really enjoy nicotine products, and tobacco is not the only plant in the world that produces nicotine. But there are people out there that enjoy tobacco. They enjoy it. They know what the risks are. They're okay with it. It's something they enjoy. And if it's something that they grew, manufactured, harvested, and made cigarettes out of themselves, we're not talking about something that's based off of a profit model where a company is profiting off of addiction in that sense, are we? No. No, we're not. And if you look at the studies, like, if you actually want to help people with things that are addictive, making them illegal is not helpful. It's actually one of the worst things you can do. The most helpful thing that you can do is offer treatment services to help people get off of the addictive substance in question, which is something that someone's going to have to make a personal choice about if that's what they want to do or not.
So instead of making people criminals,
maybe we should, from my perspective, get rid of prohibitions and allow clinics. Sorry, the mower is distracting as hell. Allow rehabilitative services to take in and what is the word that I'm looking for? It's I think rehabilitate. Like make sure that that there's clean utensils, that the substance is what it claims to be. Like honestly, like having it FDA regulated is the best thing to do to make sure that it's regulated for quality, dose, purity, all that stuff, and that it's not contaminated with something else, etc., etc., etc. And but this harm reduction stuff, where you have clinics that are focused on it, being able to revive people, offering Narcan, not prescription, but just having it available. These are things that save people's lives. Locking somebody up doesn't really save their life, and a lot of the times, it just causes more problems. Anyway, I'm taking too long. This is going to be a long video if I don't stop. So here's the first video that sort of makes it sound like, and I've got something to say about this pharmaceutical conspiracy, that the only reason why opiates were the only thing offered was because they're addictive. There's actually something to this about wild lettuce, but okay, let's go ahead and show that video right now.
It is time for your daily dose of information suppressed by Big Pharma. Wild lettuce, or Lactuca canadensis. The sap contains lactucarium, which is used in medicine. Lactucarium has the effects of a feeble opium, but without its tendency to cause digestive upset, nor is it addictive.
All right, so with that video, the thing with the comment, if you read on the screen, there was something that made it sound like or seem like it was a pharmaceutical conspiracy theory, that the only reason why they offered opioids as a pain relief substance was because they were addictive and they wanted all these people to get addicted and then profit off of the addiction, and they never get blah 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 blah. The thing about opiate withdrawals is, unlike some other substances that people advocate for the use of treating pain rather than opiates, are actually worse, because opiate withdrawals don't last forever. They don't last the rest of your life. Some of the medications, like the psychiatric medications and gabapentinoids, can last for the rest of your life. They can. I'm not saying definitively. I'm saying they can. I'm saying it's a possibility. Along with a lot of other very strange underlying health conditions, like fat floating around in your bloodstream. Anyway, the thing about that is that I'm going to show you these articles, and we're going to see this, is that there was a pharmaceutical patent on wild lettuce to treat pain in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and there's a very good reason why they don't use it in pharmaceutical medicine to treat pain, actually. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second when I go over the articles. I want to show you the next TikTok video, just because. So here's that TikTok video now. It's only like 50 seconds.
Do you know what that is? Have you ever seen that outside? I bet you have, and you didn't even know what it was. Or you probably thought that was a dandelion. That is not. This is wild lettuce. Wild lettuce, also known as prickly lettuce sometimes, is also a massive painkiller. Let me show you something. This is what it looks like when you plant it as a bebe that I have been growing. The cool thing about prickly lettuce is it can actually completely replace your opioids, and it's non-addictive. That's super cool, right? I think so. It is also good for any kind of tension in the body that is brought on by like anxiety. It can help with digestive problems. You can straight up eat that shit in a salad. It is the closest thing to actual salad lettuce that you are probably going to get out in the wild. And this is not regulated by the FDA because it is a weed. That's it.
All right, so now I want to go over these articles. So these are snippets from the articles where I took out the most useful information. I will have the links to these in the description, but there is one that I am actually going to show you the website, which is from dnih.gov, also known as PubMed. But from Healthline, side effects, this is specifically for wild lettuce. Like I said, look for the links in the description. Side effects, potential danger, and alternatives due to the lack of research, which is interesting that they say this due to the lack of research. There is actually research that has been done on wild lettuce out there. On wild lettuce supplements, the potential side effects of such supplements are unknown. Again, this is not true, and we are going to find out about that here in a minute. There is no way of knowing how wild lettuce extract may interact with certain medications. This is probably true because animal studies indicate that wild lettuce extract may have sedative properties. Anyone taking sedatives should avoid wild lettuce supplements. Additionally, ingesting wild lettuce may cause hallucinations, which can be dangerous. Before using wild lettuce medicinally, speak with a healthcare professional to make sure it is safe for you to consume. So you say that there's not a lot of medical evidence, but ask your healthcare professional if it's okay to use with other medications, even though we don't know anything about it. Okay. And you know, this is from WebMd. It says wild lettuce can be toxic. Even in moderate amounts, some people use liquid extracts in very unsafe way, which can lead to serious health problems. Eating raw wild lettuce may have side effects. These symptoms seem to happen based on the amount eaten and can include insomnia, anxiety, dizziness, sensitivity to light, vomiting, nausea, sweating, urinary retention, heart problems, breathing problems, and stomach cramps. And this is an abstract from PubMed about wild lettuce. Can cause toxic effects when eaten. Wild lettuce grows in the North Iranian, and some natives consume it unaware of its adverse side effects. We describe 8 patients with manifestations of wild lettuce toxicity admitted to a general hospital affiliated to the Gulistan University of Medical Sciences. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. All the patients recovered, although one had to spend 48 hours in the intensive care unit, and no chronic complications were reported. A clinical suspicion of toxicity caused by wild lettuce intake and an accurate history formed the basis of the diagnosis. Conservative treatment, vital sign monitoring, control of patient intake and output, and reducing patient agitation provided the basis for treatment. And this is from Medical News Today. Summary: people have used wild lettuce in traditional medicine for pain relief for centuries, and some studies suggest the plant has analgesic and sedative properties. It does not have analgesic properties. It may have sedative properties. Here's the thing that I have come to know about wild lettuce. What is in it is that relieves pain is that it is an anti-inflammatory. So it's like taking an ibuprofen. The thing that makes it sedative and the thing that makes it so that people think that they're taking something like an opiate is that it has a hallucinogenic property, much like that of Salvia divinorum. So when you take this, you can become dizzy. You can have like some pretty weird hallucinatory effects, really strange hallucinatory effects, not like that of LSD or mushrooms. these sorts of hallucinogens that are sought after quite often, or even ecstasy. It's more like salvia divinorum. If you're not familiar with that, it's that type of hallucinogen is very, very difficult to explain if one has never done it, as are most hallucinogens in general. So basically, when you consume wild lettuce, you're consuming something that is a combination of a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory and a hallucinogen at the same time. However, there is enough evidence to indicate that wild lettuce is safe or effective for this purpose. Wild lettuce may be toxic and cause dangerous side effects, so always consult a qualified practitioner before using it. A person can ask their doctor to prescribe medication for pain relief or to recommend safe natural alternatives. Great. That is fantastic. So those things that I told you about wild lettuce, I learned that from the NIH.gov, which what that stands for, that's a very credible source. I don't know how it gets any more credible than that. National Library of Medicine. So the reason why they're able to have that case test study for wild lettuce is because they pulled medical records in a medical study done in the Middle East and Iran, and actually had like 8 patients and monitored the intake of how much wild lettuce they consumed, how much wild lettuce they expelled from their bodies, and what the ultimate effects were, monitoring, of course, their heart rate, their pulse, their blood pressure, all those sorts of things. And the thing is that this is not a benign substance. One of the other things, like the YouTube video that was sent to me on wild lettuce was interesting because this person was talking about extracting the juices or the alkaloids directly from the plant, which I would not recommend average people do. I mean, he got to a point where he was boiling it, and I think 120 proof alcohol, basically methanolic alcohol or isopropyl type alcohol. Boiling alcohol to extract alkaloids is something I would trust a chemist to do, somebody who's highly skilled in chemistry. And I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that aren't trained in doing that couldn't figure out how to do it safely. But I'd be very, very cautious of explaining people how to do something that should really be done by a chemist, especially when you're talking about boiling 120 proof alcohol. That can be very dangerous. I would caution people against that. That's not safe. But this guy was basically stripping the plant of its alkaloids and concentrating it into like a little ball that that he could consider some kind of tonic or something that he could ingest, so that he gets the core alkaloids that do what they do. And everybody keeps saying that this is a legal opiate, and once again, no, it does not attach itself to pain receptors in the brain, which our bodies produce 4 different types of opiates itself. So we have opiate receptors in our body, and this is what opiates and opioids bind to block pain receptors. They also slow down the central nervous system. This is how opiates work in reducing pain. This is why opioids are a true painkiller. They actually block pain signals from reaching your brain. Tylenol is also considered a true painkiller because it does something similar. To my understanding, it does actually block pain signals, but I don't know that it attaches itself to the opiate receptors in the body. And if it does, it only attaches to very specific ones, which makes it non-addictive. However, acetaminophen can be very toxic for the liver when taken in large quantities. quite frequently. That's why I would say that ibuprofen and Tylenol are not good ideas for people who have chronic pain conditions who are going to be in pain for the rest of their life, chronic intractable pain. It might, like NSAIDs and Tylenol are probably great for acute pain because you don't have to take them for a very long period of time. But when you take NSAIDs and Tylenol for a long period of time, they end up causing damage to your stomach and your kidneys and your liver, and in turn, because of the damage that it does to your stomach, you end up regurgitating stomach acid. It can burn a hole in your esophagus, so it can cause something like esophageal rupture. So these medications I would not personally recommend long-term use of. Something that's good for, like headache, menstrual cramps, minor aches and pains here and there. But like when it comes to like pain, like it's probably like Tylenol and ibuprofen are probably great for acute pain. Like if you want to stay away from opiates and you've had like a broken arm, Tylenol and ibuprofen for like if your recovery time is like 6 months or something like that, and then you'll be fine. You won't be in pain anymore. Then maybe Tylenol and ibuprofen are the right thing. But like I said, when you have to take it for years. Like I have permanent stomach damage from taking NSAIDs. If I drink something that has too much acid in it, like juice, which I only drink coffee, tea, water, and juice, and I can't drink juice anymore because if I drink it, I will wake up in the middle of the night choking on my own stomach acid. Thanks to NSAIDs, and I thought my stomach would heal, and then this would go away. No, I still have this problem. There are certain foods and certain things that I have to stay away from now because I will wake up in the middle of the night choking on my own stomach acid. So thanks, NSAIDs. Thanks for that. And now I use Tylenol, but very, 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 very seldomly. Extremely seldomly, because I understand from a biotechnician's perspective, Tylenol attacks the liver in like 3 different ways. It's very, very toxic to the liver. So don't take it long term. Don't take it in mass quantities. Be very careful with it. So yeah. Wild lettuce article by here we go. So doesn't get more credible than this. This is the abstract. This is the background. It talks about how, it's used in Middle East as a pain reliever in various regions. Austria, France, Germany, Scotland, Iran. This is places that it grows, places that it use. Lactuca. Yeah, it says it's a dyer. Okay. The whole plant is rich in a milky juice that flows freely when it is scratched. The juice has a bitter taste and a noxious odor. When dried, it hardens, turns brown, and is known as Lactucarium. Has been found to contain lactucic acid, I can't pronounce this, which is a amorphous 50 to 60% lactucarium. It acts as a diuretic, a laxative, and a sedative agent, which relieves dysphonia. I don't know what that is, and decreases gastrointestinal inflammation and uterus contractions. It has anticonvulsant and hypnotic effects as well. In addition, the lettuce contains traces of, I'm not sure what that is, which is probably responsible for its sedative effects. So this is where its sedative effects comes, is this thing right here. And I'm not sure what that is. But that's where the sedative effects come from. So I was wrong. The sedative effects don't come from its hallucinatory properties. It comes from this chemical right there. Before the Victorian period, wild lettuce was, this is where you're going to learn, there was a patent on this. Before the Victorian period, wild lettuce was well known as a painkiller and sedative. In the 19th century, wild lettuce, especially the desiccated lactescent juice, lacticarium, was used as a sedative and analgesic. It was used in kidney disorders for some kind of painful uterine contractions and for generalized edema and icterus due to its diuretic effect. In its catalog of medicinal plants, published in 1917, the Serval Company asserted that wild lettuce was, quote, highly esteemed to quit coughing and allay nervous irritation, a good safe remedy to produce sleep, to be used when opium and other narcotics are objectionable. So this company, Several, had a patent on this wild lettuce juice, this lacticarium, to treat pain. It says this was written in a time when opium and cocaine could still be obtained over the counter. Because I've said this many times on my channel, these no drugs in this country were made illegal until the 1920s. They're just barely over, like the anti-drug laws are just barely over 100 years old. They haven't been around that long. Lacticarium is not easily made into a powder and is only slightly soluble in boiling water. Though it softens and becomes plastic, powdered components of the herb have been used for external use and is still used for making lotion for the skin to relieve sunburn and roughness. Its boiled form is used as an enema for intestinal irritations. And here's the case where they study it. Here we present 8 patients aged between 12 to 38 years referred with various manifestations of wild lettuce toxicity. All of them were managed successfully and discharged after a full recovery. Patient 1 exhibited a decreased level of consciousness, agitation, dry mucosa, myhydriatic pupils, urinary retention, and hypoactive bowel sounds. Patient 2 had ataxia, blurred vision, red conjunctiva, and severe anxiety. Both patients were members of a climbing group, and after taking a complete history, it became obvious that they had ingested a great deal of the herb. Wild lettuce, it was said that in the region they used to go to occasionally. The herb is eaten raw as a vegetable. The second patient developed dizziness, nausea, and vomiting gradually and lost consciousness. After that episode, all members of the group were called to the emergency department. I'm getting parched. I'm going to step away for a second and I'll edit this out, but I'm getting parched. I need something to drink. All right. Okay. Where were we? Sorry about that. So, patient 3 and 4 experienced hallucinations, sympathetic hyperactivity, nausea, and vomiting, and were referred to the hospital 2 hours later. Patient 5 and 6 were admitted with normal vital signs, dry mucosa, myadrisis and anxiety, headache, dizziness, vomiting, and blurred vision. Patients 7 and 8 presented with agitation, severe sweating, flushing, euphoria, abdominal cramps, urinary retention, and normal vital signs. And then they go into the treatment, the outcome follow-up, and the discussion. A clinical suspicion of a toxicity caused by wild lettuce intake and an accurate history provided the basis for the diagnosis, conservative treatment, vital sign monitoring, controlled patient intake and outtake or output, and reducing their agitation formed the basis of treatment. Eating of unknown substance, even herbs, should always be avoided. If herb intake is suspected, immediate contact with medical centers is required. So this is a really nifty thing, and I like this. This will be in there, so you can read this yourself. This is, I mean, this is like a database that the government keeps on like pretty much every major medical journal or publication that's ever published. Yeah, I will have that link so you can read it for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. I encourage you to read those articles for yourself and not just take my word for it. But, and again, I'm not telling you, like, if you're using wild lettuce and just understand everything has its risks. Everything does. Everything. And if this works for you and you're okay with it, maybe you've never had any of these symptoms, then I'm not against you using it. The problem is that a lot of chronic pain patients, and what I advocate for and what I'm trying to fight to get back is our access to opiate and opioid medications to manage our pain. I mean, I've truly seen some horror stories because of this anti-opiate campaign that's been brought on. It's absolutely atrocious, and that's another video. I'm not going to say that I'm going to make another video because every time I do that, it seems to not happen. But there is one that I do have in mind, but I'm not going to make any promises because I'm a chronic pain patient. Stuff happens. I don't always have time. I'm perpetually forever getting ready, like just the way it goes. Barely have time to take phone calls, So the point is that these things that I'm hearing on social media, the guy from YouTube, which I didn't show here, but that does exist. I won't have the link to that. I don't even know how to find it. I don't want to go look for it again, but and then the two TikTok videos, the things that I'm hearing on social media. Okay, so it is not a legal form of opiate. That is not what it does. It is an anti-inflammatory. Okay, it's an anti-inflammatory. It does not actually bind to opiate receptors. It's an anti-inflammatory. It has hallucinogenic properties. Apparently it has some other kind of alkaloid in it that causes its sedative effects. And just because it's not an opiate and it's not addictive, as we've seen, there are hospital reports of people using wild lettuce to treat their pain. It can create a toxic buildup or level of toxicity in your gut, in your digestive tract, and you will probably have to go to the ER. Like it said, one patient actually ended up in the ICU. So this is important for people to know and understand so they don't go out and start using wild lettuce all willy-nilly thinking that this is because it's not an opiate, it must be safe. No, just because something isn't an opiate doesn't mean that it's safe. Just because something is natural doesn't mean that it's safe. Everything has risks, including cannabis. And as much as I love cannabis, and I was promoting the legalization of cannabis before any state had ever done so. I signed up to be a member of NORML when I was 17. I'm been a marijuana activist. Make it legal, make it legal, make it legal. Like to see it made legal on a federal level, and I've never been a fan of the medical argument. I think the medical argument, I mean, it does have medicinal properties, and it's made good on getting our foot in the door and getting it legalized, but I wouldn't legalize for recreational use because I really think people should have the right to be able to consume marijuana for recreational purposes, not just medicinal. The thing about marijuana is that, we sit there and pretend like it has absolutely no risks to it. Well, guess what? It can exacerbate panic and anxiety disorder. So this is really funny. You go to leafy.com and you look at a strand and it says negatives. So this amount of people report anxiety, positives, and it can be used to treat anxiety. Well, which is it? Does it cause anxiety or does it treat anxiety? Certainly, it doesn't do both. How do you treat anxiety but cause anxiety at the same time? It's like turning left and turning right at the same time. The fact of the matter is, one of the reasons why, it's pretty easy to figure this out about cannabis, the whole paranoia thing that happens. It's more dominant in indicas than sativas, I think, my personal experience. But this stuff can make somebody who doesn't have generalized panic and anxiety disorder have paranoias and anxieties and stuff. So yeah, it's not surprising to me when somebody smokes weed that their anxiety level goes up, or they might have a panic attack and start freaking out. And that's where you have to calm them down. You just took a lot of weed. You're really, really high. You're not gonna die. The other thing is when you're inhaling a carcinogen, you're adding combustion, smoking the flower. Yeah, you're putting yourself at risk for cancer. It's still a thing. Just because it's not tobacco doesn't mean that it's not carcinogenic. When you light biomatter on fire and smoke it, it still has carcinogens. It still has tar. It still can do damage to your lungs. We've also discovered, since we've been having states legalize it, and there's been some medical studies on it, we've discovered, cannabis can exacerbate another mood disorder, and that's psychosis. People with a history of psychosis and paranoid delusion should probably not be consuming large amounts of marijuana. So, again, I'm not saying marijuana is bad. I'm not saying cannabis is bad. I'm not saying this should go back to being illegal. I'm just saying that, just because we find these things out, that these negative things, doesn't mean that it's bad. Everything has negatives to it. I mean, sugars, fats, and salts. It's can you name me a food that doesn't have any sugar, fat, or salt in it? I mean, it's lots of fruits produce sugar on their own. I mean, salts are pretty important to our diet, but these things also can cause problems to our body. It can cause health problems. And the thing is that I don't care how healthy you are. You could be as healthy as you possibly could humanly be. You're still, the fact of the matter is that we grow and we fall apart, and there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing wrong with being as healthy as possible, but some of us have, stopped wanting to live in fear of everything killing us and want to experience the fruits of life before we die, because we only have this one shot. So there's a lot of people out there that don't, I mean, there's people that wear SPF lotion inside because they're afraid the UV from the lighting inside is going to give them skin cancer. You keep going in that direction, you're going to wind up in a bubble. And the thing is even if you live your whole life like the boy in the bubble, you're still going to grow old and die. That's part of life. It's the natural conclusion to life. All biological organisms do it. They eventually grow old and die. So if you if you use wild lettuce and it works for your pain and you're okay with all this stuff, that's great. That's good for you. That's awesome. That's amazing. I'm not going to try to make it illegal. I don't want to take it away from you. I just want people to be aware of it. And I also want to keep fighting to try and get chronic pain patients to have the ability who decide that opiates are the best regimen for managing their pain. I want them to have this ability to make that decision. And this is why it's very, very important when we talk about health-related things and medications and regimens and plans, that the doctor goes over each kind of thing that there is and talks about the risks and benefits of them, to make sure that you understand all these things have risks, what they are, what they can be, what this can do to you. At the end of the day, each individual person is the one who's going to have to deal with the consequences of whatever regimen they decide to use to manage their health conditions. And so no one else should be able to make that decision but the individual, because no one else has to live with that consequence. Nobody. If you use wild lettuce to manage your pain, I don't have to live with that consequence. I don't have to wake up one day going, oh my gosh, my bowels, I need to go to the, I mean, that you're the one that has to live with that consequence. I'm not. So it shouldn't be up to me to tell you, like, if this works great for you and you don't mind that kind of thing, like that's a minor hiccup to you. Some people, I mean, that's a big deal. That's not worth the risk to them. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's the individual that has to deal with the consequence of the regimen that they decide. And they should have every right to decide what it is that they want to use to treat their health condition that is available to use for that. And no one else, not the government, not society, not a pharmaceutical company, no one should force you to take a very specific thing just for it. It should be your personal decision and what you're willing to deal with as far as risks, benefits, withdrawals, long-term effects, side effects, and so on. This should be each individual's decision to make. So, now you know some things about wild lettuce. Be careful if you use it. Just be careful. And if you start exhibiting some of the symptoms that were described on the NIH PubMed.gov website, go report to the ER immediately. Go to urgent care. Seek medical attention immediately. Some of these things can kill you. All right. And that's all I have to say. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying, if you be careful. And that's all I have to say. Oh, and don't push it on everybody like it's like the most perfect thing in the world, because maybe it's not for everybody. It's for you, for those who take it, but not everybody's going to appreciate that. It's an individual thing. It's a personal choice. It's very, very much very personal. Very personal. Yeah. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and that I'm out.